Hi and welcome again in a new video of mine. My name is Lot and this is episode 2 of the series Relationships. And I would like to diversify a little bit. So the previous one was about a love relationship. This one will be about a working relationship. Many years ago, once upon a time, actually second half of the 1990s, first half of the 2000s, I was working in a large company. It started out as a small company and then it was bought up by a bigger company. And I had this manager. And I had my own team I was managing, and he was managing the region. And this guy was, on one hand, very good at a big part of his work. On the other hand, he didn't know how to manage people. And after some time, a few years in, I came across some interesting information. Information being that this guy, his background was that his experience for which he was hired was that he had been a store manager in a jeans, selling jeans. That's how he became regional manager in telecom. And besides that, he had been a drug dealer and a pimp. So he had a bunch of girls working for him and he was exploiting them. So this guy joined the company together with me, this small company. We were part of the first 8 managers, if I'm correct. And after a few months, he was promoted to be a regional manager. So this background doesn't mean that somebody will be always a badass. But in this specific case, he didn't really change much of his behavior. So in order to be a pimp or even a drug dealer, you need to be sneaky, manipulative, have a corrupt mind or corrupt mindset, have little ethics, good at covering your ass, and being opportunistic. And he had all those characteristics. So you could say you can use these characteristics, most of them, and be really good at your job. And so he was really good at a big part of his job. But on the other hand, he was very manipulative. He was only happy if he was getting things his own way and if he was profiting. So I would be squeezed to the position that I had to force my employees and myself to sell bad products because he would get a bonus, even if he knew the product was bad. And then finally higher management would realize that there were so many problems with the product, so they would cancel it. And then he would say, yeah, it was a very bad product. Yeah, asshole. But you were a pain in my butt when I told you it was a bad product. I was not going to sell it because it would bite me back and customers would come back very unsatisfied and start spreading bad stories about us, and that would mean business would go down. But you didn't care. And of course he would not respond. He was just like have this like but I made a lot of money. And I'm your boss, so you do what I'm telling you to do. Well, not exactly. If I would feel something was wrong, I would say it and I would refuse to do it. So for 8 long years, I had conflicts with the guy. Not about everything, not constantly, but big part of the time we had conflicts. Unless he needed me, or I was coming up with an idea that he loved, that he saw the benefits of, for him of course, and I was tortured. He even tried to get me fired at a certain moment after not even a year, after half a year actually, I believe. And instead I got promoted by his boss, who was also not squeaky clean, but was at least respecting people who were doing the right thing, like me. So yeah, my sales numbers were not as high as others, but they were as high as possible within the law, within the regulations. But others were selling double or triple the amount, but they were cutting corners, they were breaking all the rules, and this in the end was costing the company a lot of money. But they didn't care because they were looking at certain statistics, they were looking at the bonuses, and that was costing money at the end. They didn't care because they wanted to show certain statistics so they could sell the company to the bigger one. And that's indeed what happened. And then of course part of the management changed, but he stayed. And so he got another boss, and one above that, and the one in between left quickly because he was an honorable guy. And the one above was again a thief, a corrupt guy, a womanizer, which is not always a problem, but in this case he was behaving very inappropriately and then ending up promoting women to certain positions where they didn't belong because he needed to cover his ass, not to get sued or whatever. And some women were happily abusing of his weaknesses. So I didn't really have the right support. I was in the work council, and from there I was kicking back, I was exposing what I could when it came to corruption and theft and stuff like that. I even did a lot of internal audits, and he was using me for that. I was very happy that I was very thorough at doing things. So the first auditor we had, he would just come and drink coffee and then open the books just for so people could not say that he didn't do his job, but he knew that everything was squeaky clean. So I got to be sent to other stores to go and fix the problems, to go and discover who was actually stealing and how much was stolen. And the same guy, actually, at a certain moment, I was sent by him to another store where I had to relax, according to him, because I had cleaned up one of the biggest stores of the country, brought them back into the top 3, which was not even my intention. I was just busy for 3 months cleaning up the shit that he was indirectly responsible for because he hired the people who were working there. And then he was like, okay, you're gonna rest there. He first didn't approve my holidays, which by law they should have been approved, but I didn't know that at the time. But in the end, I was happy I didn't leave with that group because afterwards I heard that things didn't go so well. So I lost like 300 euros on tickets and so, but okay. After that I had a much better holiday, which he couldn't refuse because then I had, it was known which store I was going to, so in that schedule I planned my holidays. But then he told me not to act when I told him about all the fraud and corruption I found. The whole team was corrupt, the whole team was stealing. And he literally ordered me not to act, to keep my mouth shut. And then he went on holiday. And I was still pissed off because I didn't go on holiday. So yeah, then the financial director dropped by on his tour through the country, and he had a look and he liked what he saw. And then he asked me to come outside. We had a small walk, and then he turned back at me and he said, "Is there anything I need to know? Anything you didn't tell me?" Well, I was not allowed to go and call people and say, hey, there's a big mess. But if I get the question from one of the highest people within the division, who by far outranks my boss, and you ask me a question like that, I have to answer, and I will answer honestly. So I said yes, and I told him what I had discovered so far without even investigating too much. The guy turned so pale I could almost see what was behind him. And so he asked me to act. No, he ordered me to act. Yes! So I was like, okay. So I started digging, and I dug for 2 days. And then I found so much proof about all the corruption and implying all the members that the whole team got fired within 1 week. My boss was on holiday for 2 weeks. So, and this guy came at the beginning of the first week. So, at the end of the first week, I was the only one left in the store. One of the guys even signed a confession, which I faxed very quickly to audit, so it was there, so he could not retract it. And yeah, then the store had to close on my day off, for example. Because there was no personnel even in the region to cover a whole store. So another week passed and my boss came back. So I believe it was Monday afternoon. He drove back from the south because on Monday he had his meeting in the south. And apparently he got hammered and beaten and whipped and tortured and whatever. So he came into my store, went to the back, sat down and started staring at me. And sometimes he would pick up his phone, he would go, I just kept looking. And I sat down and I looked at him. And he was actually with the entrance behind us, so I had nowhere to go. So I was like, okay, I don't need to go anywhere. And he kept looking. And he kept looking. And eventually he took a deep breath. And he got up and he said he would find some personnel. And he started calling around. And then he squeezed all the other managers to squeeze their people to work overtime so they could come and cover my store while I was going on holiday. Because there was nobody left after me going on holiday. And he was not going to cancel that holiday. He knew that. Because I think he even mentioned that to the financial director that I was already not happy. So I went on holiday, went to Greece, had a fantastic 2 weeks. And yeah, when I came back, the relationship was, of course, not so good. But I got a new assistant who was a good guy, who I even invited to join the next company I went to later because he was really good. And yeah, in the end, this guy never got fired. But his boss, the very corrupt guy who was womanizing and doing all those other things, I managed to build a file that was showing that he was not clean. And at a certain moment, the sales director who was hired, who came above him, was a guy that he had been screwing over before that, 5 years earlier. And then I knew, like, okay, it's end of story for you. And then this corrupt guy tried to fire me. And so he basically offered me a settlement to leave because I was really getting close to exposing all his dirt, which was affecting the personnel, which was affecting clients. We had even clients fainting in our stores because of the bad air conditioning during the summer. Because friends of his did the installations and installed the wrong stuff, and he skimmed the money or whatever they gave him. So that guy got fired after I left. He paid me to leave. I mean, I was done with the company. I had nowhere to go. I mean, if I wanted to grow in the company, I had to go to the south, but that was, yeah, I didn't want to leave Amsterdam. And anyway, I didn't like the city where the company was located. So I left. I took the money and I left. And I even got more than what he offered, because I went to a lawyer and I had a file like this, 2 folders thick. And this was a fantastic lawyer. This lady, I'm so annoyed that I cannot remember her name, because I would recommend her to anybody who needs a good lawyer. But she went through the whole damn file and the letter that she wrote to the company to say, you want my client to leave, fine, but whatever accusations you have are all false, because tack, 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 all the proof that I had provided. And in addition, you need to pay tack, 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 more proof I had provided that they were late on paying certain things, or they had made errors, or they refused to give me what I had the right to. So at the end, I left with a very nice settlement, and 3 months later, I get an unofficial call, a call I never received, from somebody who informed me ahead of the whole company that the guy was fired. Somebody who really appreciated me and was happy that this guy, this rotten apple, was finally gone. Many years later, I met the sales director, I mean the guy who was back then sales director, and who confirmed to me every suspicion I had. I mean, I got verbally the whole file confirmed that I had, and even more details. So why I'm telling you this story. There was a lot of respect between my direct boss and me, both ways, because we respected that we were good at most of what we were doing. But what we disliked from each other was that he was dishonest and manipulative. That was what I disliked from him, what basically everyone disliked, and the number of burnouts within his region were enormous, and even an assessment, of which the details were leaked to me, showed that he was very manipulative. And what he hated from me was that I was standing up to him. I was not bending over, I was saying no. And he knew that I was right when I was saying no. He knew I was right, or I would be proven right, or that a month or 2 later that product would be taken off the shelves, or those changes would be implemented, or that I was in my rights to say no. Here is a limit for me. I will not cross that line, or I will take my holiday, or I need my rest, or I will not do this bullshit overtime because you screwed up something. But this relationship consumed me, and I got 2 burnouts. 2 because the first one didn't get properly diagnosed, and I didn't get the proper help, and I didn't know where to look for the proper help. So I got back to work with some adaptations and stuff like that, but it didn't work out. So I had a fallback about a year later. I mean, after being fully recovered on paper, I had a fallback and then collapsed again. And only then I had the right people who actually helped me realize what the problem was within me, because not everyone was having a burnout in the company, but I was. I mean, many others, but not everyone. So it was how we were reacting within the relationship, how we were behaving, how we were taking things personally. And yes, I was taking a lot very personally. And my lesson was that a job is a job, that I have my ethics, which I stick to. And if you don't like it, go ahead, fire me. But I was also afraid of leaving the company because I had no clue what to do. And that's why I stayed so long. And when finally I was offered that settlement to go and fuck the hell off, I mean, the guy almost said it literally, then it felt like, okay, there's some kind of safety net, so now I can leave and I can use my time to figure out what to do next. So it was for financial security that I stayed, and I kept suffering. Even after I realized what I had to realize about myself. But then, as soon as I realized it, the universe was like, okay, you learned your lesson, now you can move on. So, okay, now he's gonna come, he's gonna try to fire you and offer you a settlement, and you'll have the perfect lawyer who will just crush his case. And as the relationship has been damaged so badly, now they need to let you go, and by law they need to pay you a certain amount because you worked there for so many years and because they did bad things. And I mean, I didn't even get what I could have gotten if I let it go into a lawsuit, because I could have gotten at least 50% more. But I was like, no, just give me what I have the right to in a neutral case, so I can leave, I can close the chapter, because I learned my lesson. And the funny thing is that when I sat down with the guy and he told me like, okay, there are a lot of problems here, and yeah, you really messed up big time, so it's time for you to leave. But I'm gonna make it easy for you, and I'm gonna make this exception. I'm gonna be very nice by giving you this settlement. And I just stayed so calm. I just, all my stress went like, because I was called in like, you need to go now to see the guy. I was in a work council meeting and I had to leave the work council meeting, which is by law not even allowed. But the president of the work council was in bed with HR and management because she wanted to make a promotion. So she pushed me there, and which was okay in the end. And yeah, so I sat down there, and then suddenly all the stress was gone. I was like very calm, just listening, observing. Yeah, don't you have anything to say? I'm just surprised. And you ask it, no, I'm just surprised. Nothing. But when I stepped in the car, I was like full of stress, so I called my two best friends, and both said, congratulations! I was like, what? What? I just lost my job, you say congratulations? Yes! After 8 years, congratulations! Fuck! I didn't realize yet, but after some time I realized, especially when I had this fantastic lawyer and so, yeah, then it all made sense. So the lesson that I had to learn was to listen to what's in here, to listen to my intuition, to follow my heart. Because as soon as I left, I mean, we agreed on the terms on, I believe, December 16th or so, something like that. And January 15th, I already started in a new job. I mean, on December 30th, yes, December 30th, I had the job interview that would lead to a job, and where I entered, and it was very easy. I sat down with the financial director of that company. I was going to have a simple job doing quotations and basically calling clients and telling them they need to pay. In another multinational, of course. And yeah, it was one of the easiest job interviews I had. I mean, even the recruiter was sitting there. I was like, okay, what am I doing here? These two guys are talking, and yeah, I tried to ask my questions. He had his list of questions to ask, like a very, very thorough recruiter. And how do you do that? I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, well, this guy is much more fun. The financial director was a guy who had some brains, who had some vision, and we connected so easily and talked about so many things. It was in the pocket. It was just a question of, yeah, I couldn't start on the 1st because they had to do some admin stuff, and so it would be the 15th because that was easier for HR to process everything. But of course I was challenged after that again. In that next job I got again a boss who was a total, with the boss above that who was like this. So actually no, the first period was okay, and then I got into another position, and then I got this horrible boss with a very good boss above that. So I got back into a similar situation, but then I acted differently. I reacted much faster. I realized what was happening, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to eat shit here, and I'm not going to let it affect me. This is what I'm going to do. This is best for me. And if they don't like it, it's fine. I'll leave. And in the end, I just wrote down on a piece of paper all the work, all the tasks I had, with a number of hours which it would cost, gave it to my boss, and she could go screw herself, because I was working 40 hours a week. That was my contract, but I had double the workload. And the real reason why she was annoying me was that she was afraid of me, because I had more vision than her. I was liked by the different managers. She was not the big important one when I was around, because the guys would just connect with me and let's talk this and that and let's laugh and did you see Ajax last weekend? Yeah, it was good. And I think like that. She was like, what? He's talking directly with those managers, and he's my employee, and they're supposed to look at me, and I'm the important lady. Yeah, of course, she had only been doing a few years of secondary school, and that was it, or not even. And besides that, she had literally kissed ass up into the company. And I heard the stories, and I know these stories were true, how she literally went to kiss ass of managers so that she would get promoted. But she could not get past the position where she was. Like her lapdog, who was my colleague, could also not get hired because he wanted to get her job, but for that she needed to get a promotion, and she was never going to get that promotion unless she would find again some guy who was crazy enough to promote her. But she was simply not competent, because she was so insecure that she wanted all the attention to go to her. It was all about her and her results and her glory. Where I was sharing the credit, admitting if I was making a mistake, which for her was shocking, and she immediately tried to use it against me. But yeah, I mean, if I admit, then there's not much you can do. You cannot fire me for making a mistake. Not the kind of mistakes I made, especially because I didn't have certain experiences or so. So her boss was on my side, and he couldn't fire her because of whatever complications, and he didn't want to go into too many complications. So the day I left, I said, okay, this is enough, I'm leaving. When I decided, somebody called me and there was already a job offer. He was actually looking at me like, damn, you're leaving already, leaving me here alone? Gee, I'm working on getting out of this shithole as well, but you're running out first. That's not nice. I was like, hey, you better run faster. And yeah, so I left. And then of course I got tested again. But then within 3 weeks, I made things very clear, and that's when things started to really transform into my life. Because I had learned my lesson 3 times on 3 different levels. And every time it was going faster and faster. The first was 8 years, the second was, I think, 1.5 years, and the last one was 3 weeks, and then, and again in the last one, I also got a reward. I got a reward for saying, okay guys, no, stop here, I don't take this shit. I'm not accepting this. Because I landed again in a company where it was a very unhealthy situation, but the regional manager was squeezed. He had no other choice than keeping that guy as a manager there, and I was new, so I could not manage there. And he literally said it to me, like, I'm squeezed, and I know your capabilities, and I know that you're not getting a fair chance here. So what he did, he said, okay, after 3 weeks, your probation time ends in another week, so keep the company car, keep your salary, keep everything, and you just give the keys back end of the month. I'm just paying you until the end of the month. That's the best I can do now. And yeah, I really hope you'll find a better thing. And I found. I found a much better thing. But the fact that somebody, because they were not, it was the trial time, so they could say, okay, it's an impasse, you leave, bye, and everything stops. And you were like, no, till the end of the month you keep everything, which was very generous, which also helped me in other ways. So yeah. So in business relationship, or no, in working relationships, when I say business, people may think that you're owner of a company or so. And so in working relationships, it's very important that you stick to your ethics and you're not afraid of your boss, not afraid of losing your job, because once you go into fear, they're going to squeeze you like a cockroach. They're going to step on you and crush you. They basically get the opportunity to enslave you, but you're giving them the opportunity. You're saying, okay, I'm going to do anything as long as you don't fire me. Okay, every morning you start by crawling under my desk. A way of speaking. And you're going to take a toothbrush and clean the plinths. Again, way of speaking, but they're going to make you do everything that they're not in the mood for. And they're going to torture you even for kicks, just for fun. And they're going to feel great about it. And you're going to feel lousy. And you deserve to feel lousy because you're not respecting yourself. So why would they respect you? You're not standing up for yourself. So why would they even do an effort? If they get to go the easy way and get to have somebody who they can use as a doormat and step on and clean their shoes on every day and do everything for them, if they're not ethical, they're not going to respect you. And a lot of people are not ethical. A lot of people want the easy way. And that's what you get. When I had employees who were not ethical, not standing up for themselves, I was kicking their asses. First I would torture them a bit. Like, okay, you're not standing up for yourself. Okay, let's see if you learn your lesson. Push, push, push. More workload. And then, yeah, everything okay? Yeah? Okay. Super. Okay, let's give them more. Till they would wake up. And if they would stand up for themselves, I would be happy. And I would reward them for standing up for themselves. And I would make sure they would get their promotion as soon as I could, even if that would mean they would leave my team and I would lose a fantastic workhorse. But hey, when people stand up for themselves, they do get what they deserve. Maybe not always instantly. Maybe sometimes they need to be tested. Like, are you really standing up for yourself? Also when things get hard. And that is where a lot of people go bust. Of course, people go, if everyone goes in the street, they will also go in the street and say, oh, we demand this, we demand that. But if the boss comes, okay, you have demands? No, I'm not going to speak up, because then everyone is suddenly gone and you stand there, hey, hi, no, I was just saying hi. Yeah, I know. I never done that. I stood up, but I didn't stand up enough. And I was still afraid. That's why I didn't leave that first company. But once I really stood up, then things started to change. That's why they had to offer me a settlement to leave. That's why the second company, that lady could not do much. She had to cut in half my workload. And then I left. And her lapdog got my half of the workload, so he got, I think, worth 100 hours of work per week. But he was willing to do anything because he wanted her job. So he was gonna keep kissing her ass till the end. The funny thing is, after I left, they hired first 2 people to replace me, and then they even hired a 3rd person. Because probably the laptop started complaining as well. So all that work that I had to do and part of what he was doing had to be done by 3 people. But I said, screw you. And after I left, yeah, they figured out that they didn't manage things well. But I grew stronger, I grew wiser. And so the next job interview was different. And I started saying what I wanted, not what I was preparing to do for them to get their grace for getting the job. No! I entered and said, I would like this job, but here are my conditions. Tack, 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 tack. I'm not gonna do this shit. Not my problem. Structural overtime, no, not my problem. It means that you're not managing the department correctly. Why should I suffer for that? And my last job interview I ever had was one where it was literally like this, and HR was like, and the guy was like, yep, I fully agree with you. Welcome to the team. And the lady was like, it's gonna be a tough one for you. So be it. So let the lesson be. Listen to this. Stand up for yourself. Don't eat shit. And keep going forward. You will be successful. You will succeed. You will have a good future. And your life will do this. But if you bend over, if you start bending over, then you will end up being laying on the floor and being a doormat. See you in the next video. And I have no clue what I'll be talking about tomorrow. We'll see.